Hey everybody, welcome to video number 8 and on our custom Conan Exiles map setup. Well, alright, so when we last left off we were worried about the sound levels and things like that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do and kind of explain right now is what we did. If you want, you can go ahead and keep exactly what you did. It turns out, I guess why the sound was working on my map was I've had stuff spread out and then I entered our I put the sound in a little bit later, so I had enough stuff out there where it was expanding the bounds for me. So because we're on an empty map, where our bounds is not going to extend out. So by using the barrels, that'll help us. And then as you build more into the world, eventually you could probably remove those barrels. But for now, I'd suggest you keep it. So what I did is I kind of just took care of the situation and kind of laid it out. And let me go ahead and I'll transition over to my display here. I'll go ahead and kind of show you guys that. So I just went ahead and I put 4 barrels in each corner, and let me get over here and show that. I believe actually I think that barrel is going to be floating. Let me see. Oh, you know what would help if if I had the sound level actually open. So what I did too is I also created a new level and I call it Sound Barachin. And in the content folder, I put it out here just to see if that would make any difference. It sees this level, but it still doesn't extend the bounds. So I was just testing and playing because I did exactly what the Funcom dev team did with their sound level, is put out here in the main directory and not in the height map folder. It doesn't really matter where you put it. But if you want, you can go ahead and redo it and follow along like I have mine here, or you keep where you have in the height folder. I just changed the one in the height map folder to camps NPC 1B, so I just renamed it, etc. Okay, so I was trying to show you barrels, and hopefully I got that level up now where you can actually see the barrel. Double check. Did I not open it? Sorry. Sorry, had a long day today, so let me open it. Jeez, I thought I double clicked it open. All right, long day, long day. All right, so there's our barrel down there that I was trying to tell you and show you. Oops, camera is a little too slow. So what I did is I went around on the 4 corners of the world composition. Let's go to Windows levels real quick, composition. And I just opened them up and then I just placed it in the checkered square. And then to extend the bounds, so to give you kind of the bounds right now, so let me go to World Outliner, View, and Current Level Only. So there's barrel 1, and then barrel 2, I extended it up in the air to stretch the bounds, so that way the level bounds is extending from corner to corner of the entire map. And then our sound volume out here is big enough and is filling in and is playing the sound on the map. So just what I showed you in the last video, that will work. Okay. So what we're going to do now, let me go ahead, Windows levels. Let me go ahead and close the sound level and unload it. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually, from my notes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with water. Working with the water, post-process, the static mesh, the physics volume, okay? So now, we don't want to set it up from scratch, because then we have to sit here and play with a lot of settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cheat it, and we're going to borrow from the Conan Exiles map. However, we're going to have to do some work with that, though. But we're just going to copy the static mesh, the physics volume, the post-process volume, and the water nav mesh volume. Okay, so go ahead and navigate to the Conan, the maps folder, Conan sandbox. Go ahead and open up the sandbox. And what we're going to do is then we're going to open up level 3.3. Okay, height map 3.3 on the Conan Exiles map. So minimize that, go to Windows, Levels, and we're going to scroll all the way down to 3.3, and we're going to go ahead and open that up. Okay, and as it opens, we'll fly over there. Now, there's a little trick you can do too. Is if your camera's way out here, if you want, what you can do is go View and Current Level Only, and all you gotta do is click on one of these items here, and it'll take you quicker over to the map, so you don't have to sit there and try to navigate your camera, from a long distance as a quick snap over. Okay. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy the water mesh. We're going to copy the post-process volume and the physics volume. So on on here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we're going to hide the level. So if we go to Windows, Levels, let's go ahead and hide the level right now, the height map 3.3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to carefully navigate to this little square here, and you're going to navigate and you're going to pull up the underwater oasis. You're going to pull the water nav mesh, and you're going to pull the physics volume, and then we'll just carefully Windows Levels. We're going to go ahead and unhide the level, and we're going to go ahead and grab the static mesh. So we should have everything carefully all clicked and highlighted right now. Looks like we got it all. Hit Control G, group it. Oh, this is going to be a pain, so I forgot, because the static mesh Funcom put it in a separate level. You can't group actors in a different level. If they're on different levels and they're together like this, you can't group them. So all we're going to do is go Control C and hit copy. And now what I'm also going to show you is another neat little trick. All right, if you go down to your Windows and you bring up Notepad, all right, and you hit Control V, you can paste information here, okay? And then if you hit File, let's go ahead and hit File, Save As, and I'm going to call this Water Setup. And what this is going to do is this records the exact areas, what the mesh is, what volumes yet you had selected here. Now you can't do this with blueprints, but you can do this with volumes, static meshes grouped together, but blueprints will not copy onto text like this. It doesn't work out very well. It causes errors. Okay, so now what we're going to do is then we're going to go up to our content folder, okay, and we're going to go down to our mod folder, and let's go ahead and open up our persistent level, and obviously do not save the Conan sandbox. So let's go ahead and do that. Now what I'm also going to show you then is take that text that we just created, that text pad, so I'm going to go ahead and search that text pad real quick, water setup, and I'm going to hit edit and hit select all, edit, copy, go back into our editor, and I'm going to hit right click and I'm going to hit paste here. Okay, and what that will do is it'll bring everything over, and then what we want to do is hit Control G if we want to keep everything together. Now in our world outliner, we want to make sure we have this kind of organized, right? So we have water, and there's the static mesh for water, but we also have another folder called water, which has a river physics and nav mesh. So what I like to do is I like to make sure this is all together. So I'm going to hit Shift G real quick to break it apart. All right, but carefully not shifting or moving anything. Let's go ahead and just grab our water mesh, and let's go ahead and stick it in the water folder. And then also let's look for underwater post-process, the oasis. Let's go ahead and edit. Let's copy that. Actually, no, sorry, don't copy that. Just find it, okay, and find your folder with water and put it in there. That way all 4 items are together, okay? So this is great. So we have everything together, and it's all nice and snug. Now it's not grouped together right now. I'm not going to group it, but it's on perfect coordinates right now. To save ourselves a lot of time and heartache, we're going to go ahead and leave it just like it is, but we're going to do some size changing, okay? Now, we might have to adjust it once we get our expanses set up, okay? In other words, our width. Now, here's the caveat. If you're doing an island map like myself and you download one of my island height maps, what you can do is do what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually take this and stretch these out to fill the entire world. Okay. Now, if you're doing a continent, it's best to use several of these setups, okay, and do individual lakes or ponds or whatever that you are doing, or a small section of ocean. But if you're doing like a full island setup like I'm doing, then you're going to do what I'm going to do next, which is I'm going to stretch it amongst the world. But you also got to remember too, you want to leave some space for dungeons and things like that. So if you're planning to build under the world, dungeons instead of under the world, remember that you got your physics volume and all that stuff too, so you got to be careful how far you extend it down and etc. So you got to really try to plan it out. And if you recall, I said the best way to do your dungeons is to put them on the outside map tiles, and we can use level streaming to hide them, and they only pop in when we actually need them. Okay, so that you'll never see them floating in the sky in the world if we could do that. So, but we'll get onto that stuff a little bit later. But all right, so let's go ahead and let's adjust these, the post process, the nav mesh, and etc. Okay, so what we need to do is if we go up to perspective here, and if we go top down, okay, let's take a look and see where we're at. So we're pretty close to center, which is nice. That's why I picked the Oasis, because it's centered to the map and makes a lot more sense. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our perspective. And the first thing we're going to stretch out is our water mesh. Now we don't want to move the Z scale. We're going to play with the X and Y, the green and red. Stay away from the blue, because right now everything is grouped nicely. So when we're swimming across the top of the water with the physics volume, everything is level according to the Conan vanilla. All right, we don't want to have to sit there and do too much with our physics volumes and adjust things. All right, so let's go ahead and adjust the scale of our water mesh. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try 3000 on the X. Okay, that's quite large. All right, and then I'm going to do 3000 on the Y. Okay, and then I'm going to go back down to our perspective here and go top down, zoom out and see how far that put us. Now that put us pretty outside the world, which is pretty good considering. What we want to do is we want to kind of stretch it so that our map, it looks like there's ocean way off in the distance. But I'm going to go ahead and cut it down a little bit more. I'm going to go 2500 on the scales for now. And we can adjust this later if we need it to extend more in case it doesn't look correct. Okay, so that's a little bit better. It's closer in. So let's go ahead and let's do 2000. And you just make fine adjustments like this. And we'll go with that. That wraps our engine grid basically right there. So let's go ahead and let's save that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go back to our perspective here. Okay, so we stretched out our mesh, which is good. Let's go ahead and keep that. And what we can do is we can actually lock it. So we can go ahead and lock these right here. So just lock it. Okay. Oops. Control Z. Don't hit the yellow. Hit the lock. Okay. That locks our sizes in so it can't change on us. Okay. So we can go ahead and lock it, this little gray lock. Just watch it. Don't hit the yellow or you reset and you'll have to re-enter your coordinates here. Okay, on the next one, we're going to do the river physics. This is our physics volume. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to stretch this out too. So let's do 2500 now. These volumes are going to act a little more different, see, in size. So they tend to do funny things. Control Z, so we're going to undo that. So what we have to do is carefully adjust this accordingly. Now, let's try 1000 just to see what it does, its reaction. And we don't need to do 100 right now. Let's just do 25 on the Z for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and make sure this is still looking appropriate. Now the problem with this one, I noticed, okay, go ahead and undo. It looks like we're going to have to do this by hand because every time I type the coordinates in, which is really strange, oh, you know what? It was locked. Okay, maybe that's why it was causing the issue. Let's see. Let me go ahead and try the scale one more time. I didn't lock that, but it looks like Funcom might have possibly locked that. Okay, there we go. So make sure it's unlocked before you go ahead and stretch it. All right, so we don't want it to move in the Z scale. We want to keep our Z just right. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go 9,000 to start with. Okay, and let's just do 9,000 here. Okay, and let's go ahead and do top-down perspective and let's look. Okay, we're pretty close to wrapping our level. It's a little far out on the, I think, the Y. So let's go ahead and reduce the Y to 8,000. Okay, let's go ahead and reduce it down to 7,000. That's a little bit better. Let's go ahead and try 6,500. That's a little too short. Let's go do 6,700. Okay, that matches up with our tile. Perfect. Okay, and what we can do on our X, let's go ahead and try 6,700, see where that puts us. Too short. All right, so let's go ahead and do 7,000. That's still too short. So let's try 8,000. Still too short. I had it at 9,000, I think, and nope, that's still too short. So let's go ahead and do 11,000. Oops, 11,000. There we go. We're pretty close. So let's go 11,500. There we go. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll go ahead and we'll lock it. Okay, we'll go down to our top-down perspective. All right. So we got it locked in place right now. All right. And we'll adjust the Z on that because we're going to need that physics volume a little bit larger. But right now we're just going to take our time and get these all stretched out accordingly. Okay, so now we need to do our post-process. Or actually, sorry, let's go ahead and do the underwater. Yeah, there is. That's the post-process right there. Sorry, my bad. Let's do post-process. But I'm going to go ahead really quickly right now before I go any further. Edit. And I'm going to rename these real quick. I'm going to go ahead and put as PP, so post-process, PP. I'm going to go Barachan Ocean. Okay. And I'm also going to go ahead and on our static mesh, I'm going to go ahead and rename that one too real quick. Edit, rename. And I'm going to call this SM Water, or sorry, Barachan Ocean. Okay. And our river physics, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this physics, but I'm not going to call it river physics. I'm going to go physics, B-A-R-A-C-H-N, Barachan Ocean. That way I know it's the ocean physics volume. So this is all of our ocean water stuff. And then our underwater nav mesh, instead of the Oasis, I'm going to call this Barachan. B-A-R-A-C-H-N. And what the water nav modifier volume does, if I recall correctly, it keeps the AI from walking into the water and swimming into it and stuff like that. It keeps that in, it allows the engine to know that there's water. Okay, if I remember correctly. I'll double check on that and I'll update you on that and what it means. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's stretch, actually, since we got the water nav modifier volume, let's go ahead and stretch that out to fit our map. So let's go ahead and let's do 6,700 on the X to see where that puts us. Okay, and let's go to our perspective, top down. And since I got it highlighted, let's see where that puts us. I'm not seeing it. Let me try do 7,000, see what happens here on the X. I'm still not seeing it show up. Okay, that's a little bizarre. All right, it's definitely not showing up. So let me go back down to our perspective. Let me double check that, make sure we're actually moving it. Yeah, it is moving. I'm just trying to figure out where it's stretching. Oh, you know what? Let me hit Control Z. Let me undo everything real quick. Control Z. Go ahead and unlock it. Looks like Funcom locked the scale. So unlock the scale. So remember to do that. Sorry, my bad. I keep forgetting somebody had locked it at Funcom, looks like. Okay, so there we go. Now we're getting some scale. So let me go ahead and go back down to our top-down perspective. Ooh, we're way out there. Okay, so we don't need 6,700. So let's try 2,000 and see where that brings us at on the X. And on the Y, let's do 2,000. All right, that is really large. Okay, so we're up in the large numbers. Okay, so let's do 500 and 500. Like I said, each volume reacts different on scale. All right, so let's go do 100. And let's do 100 here. All right, that's bringing us closer on our map. Okay, so now we're pretty close to our edges. So I'm going to go ahead and do 150. Oops, that's a little big. So let's go ahead and do 110. That's a little too short. So let's go ahead and do 120. That'll work. We're pretty close there. Let me try 115. Oops. 115. Yep, that put us on the edge. Okay, and let's try to do the exact same thing. 115 for our Y. Awesome. That looks like it got us in the right spot. Let's go ahead and we'll hit down to our perspective. Okay, awesome. It looks like it stretched us out there, which is great. Okay, nice. All right, so we got our static mesh, our post-process, and our physics all stretched out. Okay, let's go ahead and group them real quick. Control G to group. All right, and if we go ahead and we go to our perspective looking from the front, now you can see everything is nice and grouped. Okay, and that is a little bit strange. Let me double check my perspective. And oh, sorry, I forgot. We got to do one more. Shift G. What did I miss? Snow. You got ahead of yourself. Okay, our post-process. Sorry, my bad. So let's go ahead and stretch our post-process out. Sorry, I got ahead of myself, guys. Go ahead and let's stretch our post-process out. So let's go ahead and we'll do 7,000 to start with and see where that takes us. It's quite large. And let's go ahead and do 5,000 for the Y. And then let's go ahead and go back to our perspective and go top down. And let's zoom out. Okay, we're at 22 minutes, just keeping track of myself here. Okay, so our post-process, that must be super large. Yep, okay, so it's very large. So let's go ahead and we're going to reduce down our size. So we'll do 1,000 by 1,000. Okay, and see where that brought us. Okay, we're getting closer. All right, so let's go ahead and let's try 115. And let's do 115 for the scale there and see where that put us. It looks like that got us pretty close. Looks like we're exactly where we were with the nav mesh. Yep, looks pretty damn close. So we'll go ahead and we'll go with that. All right, so go ahead and we'll go back down to our perspective. Now let's go ahead and group everything together. Control G real quick. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that is because that way we can kind of move some things. Now, the hard part of this is I know that our post-process is going to have to be adjusted, and I know that our physics is going to have to be adjusted, possibly, and the nav modifier is going to have to be adjusted as well. Okay, this is the hard part because we don't know how deep our volumes are until we get it all lined up. So I'm just going to go quickly look and see. So we don't have, these aren't very thick, and what we have to do is we have to line it up with our world. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Windows Levels, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything, and I'm going to load it. Now, if you didn't put materials on all your tiles, and you don't have a bunch of actors, you should be able to load this all up in one big hit. Just be careful. Remember not to do it when you have a bunch of actors placed and a lot of other things going on. That would not be good practice because you're going to crash your computer. But for now, we're going to go ahead and load up all the levels. So that way we can adjust our volumes to our beach. Okay. So we know where the beach is. And I know I haven't covered sculpting tools and all that yet, but hopefully you kind of figured out what paints down. If you haven't, I'll quickly show you here. That way you can go ahead and catch up on this step. I should have probably pointed it out before, and I didn't even think of that when we were setting up the character creation, so my bad. But if you watch my other tutorials, I believe I did a sculpting and foliage tutorial. But we'll cover that again in this series just because that way you don't have to sit there and try to hop through those different videos. So I'm trying to keep this consecutive. So we'll go ahead and we'll cover it in this one just to refresh everybody too, just in case you've been away. So, okay, let me see here. We're still loading. And hopefully we're on 7.1. Cool, so we're almost there. All right, almost there, loaded up. 7.5, 7.6, 7.7. Okay, everything's loaded. Okay, so right here you can tell that we got our our grouped water and all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to adjust the height of the water mesh first with our beach and try to line it up. And then we got to carefully try to adjust and keep all these things grouped together as close as possible, so that way when we go swimming, we're not a mess, a complete mess, and we have our post-process not functioning, our physics not functioning, and it doesn't look like we're actually swimming. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's begin. So let's go ahead and go back to our perspective, our top down here. And if we look, here's our islands and we got our water. Now our water's a little high. So Windows, I'm going to go levels, I'm going to go world composition, and I'm going to zoom out. And see, now we kind of got an overview of what our world kind of looks like. But this is my starting area 1-1, so I'm going to go over here to 1-1, and hopefully I can focus on that. Okay, so let me go ahead and let's navigate over there. Yep, there it is. There's our starting area. There's our spawners. Okay, but our water's high. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold down the shift key, left shift or right shift. I believe right shift will do the same. Yep. And what you do is you just carefully take the transform, grab it, and use the shift key and carefully use your mouse and pull down on your transforms. And what we're trying to do is we're going to try to get close to our beach as possible, where we have our beach sand, where it's wet. So it should look something like this. Okay. And that should work. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right click and hit play from here, because I want to make sure that this looks appropriate, where our water mesh is concerned with our sand. And everything looks correct here. So just real quickly load in and hopefully be able to play this. And we should hear a footstep splashes because everything's assigned. That's why we copied it from the Conan sandbox. That way we don't have to mess with everything. But I'll quickly try to point out those settings and where they're at and what you have to do. We're almost at 28 minutes. Okay. Or sorry, we were at 28 minutes. We're almost at 30 minutes. Like I said, I'm trying to keep these tutorials short as possible. That way it's helpful for you guys if you have to work or, you know, take care of the kids or cook dinner, or the wife beats you or you beat the wife. Whatever you got to do, okay? Snow Hunter does not condone domestic violence. All right. So let's see here. Let's make sure we get this loaded up. Come on, dev kit. We're burning the midnight oil right now, with the dev kit being slow. So let's see here. It is taking its sweet time, that's for sure. Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, we're in. All right. It's looking pretty good. We got our footstep sounds, we got our bird sounds, shift escape. And what I'm going to do is, I noticed I'm just a little bit high on my beach, just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click this again, take the group, gently hold down the shift and pull it. And there's right there, you got the kind of the wet and kind of the line there. I think that's appropriate there. Let me just double check. One more time, I want to make sure. So just kind of adjust it to your beach edge, and I'll show you in the sculpt tools what I mean. That way you know where these tools are. So if you haven't painted or done anything, we'll get you there. So I might be just slightly off a little bit. Might be just a little bit, but I'll figure that out a little bit. But we're pretty close. Okay, so let me hit Shift Escape. So what you do if you haven't painted anything, you haven't done any little sculpting or anything like this, what we're going to do is go up to Windows, go to Modes, and right here you're going to have your landscaping tool, right? So you're going to hit the mountain, okay, and you're going to hit the sculpt tool, and this is going to raise and lower terrain. You got smoothing, flatten the terrain. Okay, you got a ramp tool, which is interesting, erosion, hydro erosion, etc. Okay, but right now, here's your sculpting tools. These are the ones you're going to pay most attention to, is these three. Okay, and then to paint terrain, to paint down, you're going to select one of these material balls, okay, and you're just going to go ahead and paint it down. So I'm just going to give you a quick example. So that's the dry desert, see? I'm going to go ahead and repaint that back to the river sand, which is basically what they use for the ocean. So we're going to use the riverbed, sorry, and I'm just going to paint the riverbed back down. Okay, so that's your tools right there under mode. So just think mountain, paintbrush to paint, and then sculpt to change the terraform and move and smooth and change the landmass. Okay, sculpt, Control Z to undo that. All right, so you can Control Z and undo certain sculpts too if you need to, but it's a little bit slow. Okay, we'll go ahead and back to placeable mode. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check our water volume. So now as we swim down our post-process, we want to make sure that the post-process goes all the way down. Oops, see, I'm at the bottom of my ocean, but my post-process is not completely all the way down. So this is where I said it's going to get tricky, because right now if you look here as we go up to swim, notice that it's not past our water because the post process would blur past the water. We're also not seeing down here, we're not seeing this next to our water either. So if we were to be on top of our water, we're not seeing like a little crack like this, you know. So we want to make sure we try to keep those, the tops of each of those volumes we just adjusted level on top. Okay, now the hard part is well, we got to extend that post process. If you're not all the way down here like I am, you're going to have a big gap. Okay, and it's not too far, but still it's quite a distance down before the post process kicks in. Okay, so I want to make sure that my post process goes all the way down below the edge of the map a little bit, because then I'm going to do my small ridges and formations underwater, and we have to be able to place seaweed with our seaweed and things like that, our underwater plants, from sticking up past our mesh. Where are we at? We're at 32 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. All right. So like I told you before, what we did in view and current level only, good. Okay, so we set it up to where our water mesh and all that is grouped. But let me go ahead and go back to our persistent, because we want this on our persistent level, just in case I didn't say that. Make sure that your water stuff is on the persistent, because we want it to persist. We don't want it to level stream in. Not unless you're doing a complete continent and you're doing small lakes and stuff, then you would put it on the height maps and let it stream in separately. But for this, because we have a lot of water, we need this to persist, okay, because we have islands, all right, and I plan on trying to put river boats in here, and use the river boats blueprints and stuff to create boats and ships moving. Okay. Oh, did I let a cat out of a bag? Oops. Okay, so now we got our physics. All right, we got our post process. All right, so now this is where, like I said, you got to be very careful to make your adjustments. Okay. Now your Z scale is what's going to expand the adjustments. And I really don't want to fight with that right now because we're at 34 minutes. But what you're going to have to do is, if you're like this and you're down here like what I have here, you're going to have to try to fix that. So I'm just going to quickly try to mess with the post process because that's the hardest one. Shift G, and I'm just going to hit click up here in my group, in my world outliner, Control G again. So now I just separated that, but I kept these three together. So now I'm just going to be moving the post process. So what I have to do is I got to increase the scale of that, but I got to remember to make sure I have that unlocked. And what we need to do is we're going to have to kind of do this sort of thing and expand it and stretch it. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and expand it a little bit more. Okay, and now I got it really expanded, but not too far. It doesn't go too far past the terrain, which is good. Okay, now what we do is we go to perspective, and I'm going to go ahead and go from the front just to see it where it's at. Okay, and I got to find where the transform is. Okay, there it is. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can line this up in that blue line there. That's our water mesh. So I want to make sure that this line lines up perfect as possible. It's disappearing there. Let me double check. We're pretty close. It's just slightly above the water. So I'm going to take and hold down shift, and I'm going to move it just like that and see how far I'm off. Okay, and it's going to take precise movement. So let me go ahead and I'm going to look from the right, and let me see if I can get a transform arrow where I can actually see it a little bit better on the top. There we go, and be able to zoom in a little bit closer. Oops, I'm going to knock it out. Okay, there we go. So these are going to be like precise little movements that you're going to have to kind of try to do the best you can and get it close and approximate. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hit save here real quick. And I'm going to go back to perspective, and we're going to go up to the surface of the water. Let's swim up here. It looks like I got that pretty damn close. So there you go. So I might have got lucky on the first try, but you might find that you're going to struggle trying to get those lined up. But what you want to do is you want to make sure. So I'm going to hit play here real quick. Where were we at? We were at, shoot, 36 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to hit play here real quick, and I'm going to show you what I mean. And hopefully I've got it lined up just right. But you don't want the post-process sticking past the water mesh, because then it's going to look funny when your camera is in the water. Yep, see, so when we duck down our camera, boom, it changes to underwater. Boom. And it's not above, and we're not seeing a clear picture underwater, so it's lined up beautiful. I got lucky in the first try. But you might find that's a little bit difficult. Okay, but do your best, and then you want to make sure and double check your test. Swim all the way to the bottom, to the deepest part of your map, and make sure, like, see here, we're going to have to adjust the physics volume because we're no longer in the water physics swimming. Now we're running under the water in the ocean. So that's the next one I'll have to do. But I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want this video to go over. So, all right, everybody. So hopefully that explains the water physics and it helps you get set up for that. And that basically gets us my Barretch and Isles set up. And so hopefully you got your island somewhat looking something like this. And we're slowly moving along. So without further ado, thank you guys for your support. And we'll carry on into video number 9, I believe it is. And I don't know what exactly we'll do, but I'll announce it in the title, but also in the next video, I'll tell you what we'll be covering. Without further ado, thank you guys. Have a good day, good night where you're at. Stay frosty, stay sharp, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.